Welcome back to the NABF podcast, brought to you by the Baseball Bluebook. I'm your host, Eric Wilbenaw, the president of the Baseball Bluebook, and today we have a very special guest joining us. We are honored to have Sam Hamstra Jr., the commissioner of the Chicago Suburban Baseball League and affiliated with the NABF, on the show. With decades of experience in the baseball community, Sam has been instrumental in promoting amateur baseball and creating opportunities for young athletes to showcase their talent on a national stage. In this episode, we'll dive into the mission and vision of the NABF as well as the Chicago Suburban Baseball League and explore the impact of amateur baseball on youth development and discuss how these are shaping the future of the sport. Whether you're a player, coach, parent, or baseball enthusiast, this conversation is packed with valuable insights and information about the world of amateur baseball. So without further ado, let's welcome Sam Hamstra Jr. to the NABF podcast. Welcome.
Great to be with you. Thanks for the invite.
Well, I appreciate you joining us, and I'm excited to get this thing started. But before we begin, I encourage our listeners to subscribe to the channels that you're listening to. It could be on YouTube. We are also on Apple, on Spotify, anywhere you get your audio podcast. You can also follow us on social media, the Baseball Bluebook. So Coach, I'll probably refer to you as Coach. I think I think you've earned the respect of that title. And so why don't you give us a little bit of background of who you are and how you got involved in really amateur baseball?
Wow, it was quite a journey. After concluding my baseball career at Lipscomb, what was then David Lipscomb College, now Lipscomb University in Nashville, Tennessee, I was living in Delavan, Wisconsin, and the American Legion coach there, Al Mindshocks, said to me, Sam, we don't have a post-high school team. Would you put together a team? And I thought about it. I said, well, that sounds like fun. And we already had a semi-professional football team in town called the Red Devils. So we started the Delavan Angels as the counter to the Red Devils. And we had a wonderful team and coached that team for several years. And that was my intro into amateur baseball. And that was really the major division, right? The open-ended college age and above division at the time. And I've been involved ever since. So I coached in Delavan and then in the northwest suburbs of Chicago here. And then when my team closed up, I was invited to become the commissioner of the Chicago Suburban Baseball League, which has been going on now for like 42 years. And I think I've been commissioner for, I've lost count, 30 something of those years, if not quite. Yeah. So it's been a lot of fun.
Well, to continue that long, you must be doing something right.
Well, we have good people, right? I mean, good teams. And I just have to keep everything organized. And technology's made it a lot easier, right? Back in the old days, I was manually compiling statistics, right? I mean,
Right.
Managers would send me a game report and I'd have to manually enter them, and I'd hire my kids to do that for me. So they were all involved as well, right? And so it's been quite a ride. So now it's kind of everything's downloads, uploads by itself. So that's kind of cool.
That is nice. So let's talk about kind of the history and kind of where we're at today in the amateur baseball space. Being the commissioner of the Chicago Suburban Baseball League. This is obviously the NABF podcast, so we're specifically kind of talking about the NABF. But I'd like to hear your perspective, just kind of the state of the union of amateur baseball and kind of where you think it's going, where it is today, and kind of what should we expect? I mean, you've got a lot of history and knowledge of the game.
Yeah. Well, I think I can limit my remarks to my age division, right, which is post high and up. And there's been significant development in that area. When we started back in the 80s, there was no independent baseball, right? So people would get out of college or or get out of college and be looking for a place to continue their career and maybe get picked up by somebody. And that would happen from time to time. I remember my shortstop in Delavan was picked up by the Kansas City Royals, right? Just after a practice one day. And so we'd have guys that came out of high school. Most of them went to college, and many of them were former pros, right? They come back and they wanted to keep playing. So we had a really high level of baseball early on. They used to call it semi-professional baseball, in that we had amateurs as well as former professional baseball players. That's changed with the advent of independent baseball. And so now when a player gets released, they may hook up with an independent team, right?
Right.
And they'll graduate from college and they won't be drafted, but they'll try out for an independent team. And the MLB has really embraced the independent baseball movement, right? They've cut back the number of their affiliates and are laying into that or depending on it. Well, that means that the level of our players has gone down a little bit. I mean, they're just as passionate and just as committed and just as dedicated. But now we have the independent leagues picking players out of our league, right?
Right.
They'll see our guys and they'll say, hey, you want to come play for me? And so that's been one of the changes. Not a bad change. It's just a reality that actually our league is getting younger, because if a guy gets released from the minors and wants to keep playing, they can often hook up with an independent franchise rather than hooking up with the Chicago Suburban Baseball League. So I think that's been the biggest change in the last decade or two that's impacted the level of play. You know, we used to see a lot of 90-mile-an-hour fastballs, right? And I mean, if you throw 90, some independent team's going to pick you up, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you bring in a really good perspective. You know, you talked about it getting younger, and the advent of the independent leagues. You also said that it hasn't been a bad thing, but I'm sitting here kind of thinking, well, are you positioning yourself more of the feeder for the independents, or how have you kind of structured kind of the message out to players to say, hey, we're still a good league. We still got great players, great talent, and we have this to offer. How do you address that kind of that messaging, knowing that the independent leagues are there?
Yeah, it's the independent leagues, and then there's also the development of the collegiate leagues, right?
Right. Yep.
And so the growth of D1 baseball, like my alma mater, right, is went D1 when my son was playing there. And the D1 kids often get placed by their coaches, right, in different collegiate leagues. So what we've had to do is say, okay, we've got a lot of high school graduates playing in our league this summer. So if we have a D1 recruit who is a high school graduate, we are really positioned well to get them ready for the next level of play.
Okay.
We also have, a lot of the JUCO kids, D3, D2 kids, right, who may not have the privilege or the opportunity to be placed in a collegiate league, but then they can still have a competitive experience with us. They're not going to, we're not going to see a whole lot of five-tool talent guys, right? Because they're going to be D1 prospects, or they're going to sign out of high school.
Right.
But we are finding just good all-around baseball players who love the game and just want to continue to improve their craft. So as a result, we don't have a lot of guys playing after college, right? They give it their college years. They want to be the best they can be while they're in college. And then a few of them, if their wives allow them to, continue to hang out with us. So it's been a joy.
No, I love it. You've really kind of you're providing a need, right? That like you said, a lot
Yeah,
of graduate in high school prior to going to school. It's a great way of continuing to play games at a high level. Um,
right.
you're really talking about the Chicago League, obviously the Chicago Suburban
Yeah.
League. How does that and is the relationship with the NABF? So the NABF and the Chicago Suburban League obviously are different, but from your perspective as a commissioner, what is the value that the NABF brings, and how is it differing, and how does it, how is it similar, and how is it different than that you're doing in Chicago?
Well, the NABF, we're a postseason league. All right. Our teams play to go to the postseason. And, maybe I don't know how long ago it was, they would choose the National Baseball Congress tournament in the Midwest. They would
Yep.
choose the American Amateur Baseball Congress or the NABF. We were affiliated with all of them. And every one of our teams, almost every one of our teams would go to one of those three places to compete for the postseason. The AABC closed down. The NBC is the NBC, and they do well west of the Mississippi.
Right.
The NABF does really well on the East Coast, and now is kind of getting closer to the Mississippi, if you will. But what it does for us, it provides a great postseason opportunity for each of our teams, right? If they want to go and I think a great way to end the season is, it sounds crazy, by either winning it all or by losing, right? There's
Yep.
the end of your season, right?
Right. Right.
But to play a summer, and our teams will play 40 to 60 games, right? But just to say, well, our season's ending on the last Sunday of July with a doubleheader, it just not much to that, right?
Right.
It's nice to go to a tournament because all summer long, we'll play within our league, and the league championships. That's fine, but they get to go to a NABF regional tournament where, hey, you lose two and you're out, right? If you win your regional, you get to go on to the World Series, and that really gives them something to play for. So it's been a really great organization, volunteer run. No one's making money off of kids, which is the status of a lot of amateur baseball, right? Adults making money off the kids, but here it's a volunteer-led organization, and provides a great opportunity. We've been in Battle Creek for the World Series the last several years, and they do a great job over there, Terry Newton and his crew. And they recommended that Chicago Suburban Baseball League host it, and because we have teams there every year, we've had teams that have win it. We're one of the better, more competitive leagues in the NABF. So
I think that's great. And just a plug. One of the things we're doing is helping sponsor and promote what you just said. I think what you shared was really important for people that are listening to understand. Right, the costs have gone through the roof, and I think the NABF at their post season, their World Series, the showcases are all again, very reasonable, not trying to take money. One of the things that we're promoting is on July 17th and 18th at the Christenberry Park in Knoxville, Tennessee, is a showcase. So 2 day showcase
right,
for players, and it's only $50 to showcase. Lots of college coaches that are going to be there. They run it through as they have always done, very professionally with top-notch guys. And so we always encourage people to take a look at that with the NABF.
Yeah.
So, Coach, a couple of other things, and I love learning about kind of the historical side. It's one of the things that makes baseball so great, and it's why we love it, right, is the historical side, the looking at the stats.
Yeah.
I'd like to get your feedback, and you've been in it for a long time, is where do you see the real benefits of your league, not just the post, but you also talked about preparing them for that next level. Speak to that a little bit more. What do you mean by preparing them? Is it just more games? What are the type of coaches that are involved? What are the type of players that they're going to be around in your league, as well as going to that post season showcases and tournaments with the NABF?
Yeah, the Chicago Suburban Baseball League has tried to be a high caliber professional atmosphere kind of league, right? Um, I'm sure we've all played on the barroom softball teams, right? And those are fun at the time, but this is not that. And we have 1 day a week leagues, in Chicago and different places where, yeah, you get together with the guys and you open up a cooler after the game, kind of a thing.
Right.
But this is not what we're trying to do. We're trying to recreate just a real positive environment. Everybody being held accountable for their behavior, for their uniforms, and we play by major league rules with a couple of exceptions. And I think what it does is that, baseball is a great sport because it's a team sport, right? So if you want to be an individualist, go run track, right? But in a team sport, so you come off of your college team, whatever that college is, and you're surrounded by people you stay in the dorm with. Now you go to your summer team, and you got people from all kinds of different backgrounds,
Yep.
all kinds of different schools. You're picking up stuff from them, right? And then you have these experienced coaches who've all played at a high level and are, managing their teams with excellence. And so we're providing that kind of environment. Primarily, I think we've become, it's a preparation for the next season, right? And whatever that season might be. And so kids will come and want to get their at bats, want to get their innings pitched under with good coaches to be the best they can be as they look ahead. And we pride ourselves. We're not, if you cancel a game, man, you're probably getting kicked out of the league. All right, we just we don't allow for that kind of stuff, right? If you start saying and doing things with the umpire, you're probably going to get a suspension, right? And have to pay me a fine. And so we try to keep control over all of those things. And even with the umpires are preparing for the next season, right? Everybody's preparing. So I'll tell my
Yep.
players, the umpires are no different than you. They're working summer ball to improve their craft, right? So they can move up and maybe
Absolutely.
get on that D1 schedule someday, right? And so that I think is the real advantage for us. And then you got those guys who just love the game. And man, there are those veterans that just you watch how they handle themselves, right? You
Right.
watch how they prepare, you watch how they approach. Man, you can learn so much from just watching a veteran.
I love it. I really love it. Now, you talked about post high school. Where are the players coming from? How do they get involved? What is the process for them? Is it
Yeah.
tryouts? Is it just simply, signing up and getting placed on a team? Talk a bit about the kind of the logistics for someone that might be interested.
Yeah, we're a pretty entrepreneurial organization, right? So our managers recruit their own and fill their own rosters.
Okay.
All right. Now, if we were a house league, like when I was in Wisconsin, we had territories, right, where you can only have player if you couldn't take a player from a team in another community. Now we have rules. We don't allow teams to do that without a formal trade agreement, that kind of thing. But generally, people email me. They go to our website, ChicagoSuburbanBaseballLeague.com. There's a little panel there. So you're looking to play. They send me their information, and then I send it to the managers. And the managers are free to contact the players. Sometimes they'll get multiple calls. Sometimes they won't. Right now, the rosters are full. Because our managers, man, they plan ahead. We make our schedule in January, so
Okay. Okay.
we're crazy.
You're
We
ahead of
start
the game.
the Sunday after the Super Bowl is that's when we meet.
That's great. That's great. That's great. You can never
So they contact me.
you'll never say that baseball guys aren't organized. I'm telling you, I've always been.
Oh my goodness, yeah, yeah. You have to be. You have to be. So yeah, they'll reach out to me, and then I'll get some information on them, and I'll send it to the coaches. The coaches will, they'll Google stalk them and find out how they did this past year, right, and what their story is. I get inquiries from people who have never played beyond high school. That person doesn't do well in our league,
Okay.
right? So I just try to tell them you're setting yourself up for it's not going to work, right? We've got veteran college players, post-college players, a few pros, and it's not a place where you can just pick up the bat after you've been sitting around for 5 years and start playing. So, but those players who've been competitive love the game, love the game. You know, the key in summer baseball for baseball players is just to show up,
Right.
right? Because in amateur baseball, you get these guys, well, they show up whenever they want to. Well, that doesn't play.
Yep.
That doesn't play, right? Or they got Lollapalooza here in Chicago. That's always a tough weekend for my managers. All the players want to go to Lollapalooza, and it's like, why even schedule games that weekend? Um, you know, you got to
I think,
have,
yeah,
you
I
got to
think
be
that's
committed, right? You got to be
absolutely.
committed because we don't charge. Every manager establishes their own fee as well, and it's not exorbitant. But you don't. It's not like some of these travel teams where you got $3,000 of skin in the game. We don't have that. So
Yeah. Uh, well, I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you, Coach, and learning something a little bit about a league that a lot of people probably don't know much about. That's one thing
Mhm.
I do love about doing these podcasts is understanding the breadth of what baseball is. Right, it's not just high
Mhm.
school and college and professional. There's the independent leagues, the semi pro teams, a lot
Yeah.
of history in what the Chicago Suburban Baseball League provides, as well as the NABF. And so, Coach, I appreciate you being on. Thank you for sharing with us a little bit about both leagues. And you have a great day.
Yeah. You keep up the good work.
Thank you.
All right. Bye bye.